My name is Mackenzie, and at 32 years old, I never imagined I'd be sitting in a courtroom, staring at the two people who abandoned me before I could even walk. But here I am. Across the aisle sit my biological parents, people I haven't spoken to since the day they left me on my grandparents' doorstep. They aren't here to apologize, to reconnect, or to make peace. They're here to sue me for my grandfather's $3.4 million estate. The courtroom feels cold, like it's intentionally designed to strip emotion from every moment. My parents' lawyer is speaking in a polished tone about legal rights of inheritance and bloodline entitlement. My own lawyer sits quietly, letting him talk. We both know the truth isn't on their side, even if the law gives them room to argue. To understand how I got here, you have to go back 3 decades. My parents, Julia and Thomas, were young, reckless, and unprepared when I was born. My mother was 21, my father 23. They didn't want responsibility, not when it interfered with their plans. My grandfather used to tell me the story of that morning. He said he woke up to the sound of crying on his porch. When he opened the door, there I was, wrapped in a thin blanket with a note that said, "We can't do this."
No signature.
Just those 4 words. He brought me inside, held me, and told my grandmother, "She's ours now." From that moment on, I wasn't just their granddaughter. I was their daughter in every way that mattered. Growing up, I had the kind of childhood that money couldn't buy. My grandparents weren't wealthy then, but they gave me stability, love, and structure. My grandfather, Robert, was a retired Navy officer turned small business owner. My grandmother, Elaine, was a teacher who believed in the power of education. They worked hard and made sure I understood that my life would be what I built with my own hands. When I was 12, my grandfather's company began to grow. He expanded into construction and real estate, slowly turning it into a multi-million-dollar business. He always said he wanted to leave behind something meaningful, not just money, but a legacy of effort and honesty. Meanwhile, my biological parents were ghosts. I heard rumors they moved to another state, had other kids, and never looked back. The only trace they left was that crumpled note, which my grandmother kept in a small box along with my baby blanket. By the time I graduated law school, my grandparents were both in their 70s. I became a prosecutor, partly because I wanted to fight for justice, but mostly because I had been given a second chance at life, and I wanted to honor that. My grandfather used to joke, "If anyone ever tries to mess with you, kid, you've got both brains and law on your side." I never thought those words would become this literal. 2 years ago, my grandmother passed away peacefully. My grandfather was heartbroken but determined to stay active. We'd have dinner together every Sunday, and he'd tell me stories from his Navy days. Then one night, he handed me a sealed envelope. "You'll need this someday," he said. "Don't open it until the time is right." I didn't understand then, but I do now. When he died 8 months later, it shattered me. He was my world, the only father figure I ever knew. I arranged the funeral, handled the estate paperwork, and tried to grieve privately. That's when the letters started showing up. First, from a law firm I didn't recognize. Then, from a name that made me feel sick. Julia and Thomas Reynolds, my biological parents. They were claiming they had a right to my grandfather's estate as his next of kin. Their argument was simple. Because I was adopted informally, never legally through the court, they were still my legal parents, and therefore they were entitled to a share as the immediate bloodline heirs. I couldn't believe it. These were the same people who abandoned me as a baby, the same people who hadn't made a single call, sent a card, or offered a cent my entire life. And now they wanted millions from the man who raised me. I hired a lawyer, someone who had known my grandfather for years. We began digging through records, tax files, and estate documents. My grandfather had been meticulous. Every property deed, every investment, every will draft was carefully organized. And at the bottom of one folder, I found something that made my hands shake, a handwritten letter addressed to me, sealed in that same envelope he'd given me months before. It said, "Mackenzie, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and your birth parents have probably remembered you exist. Let them talk about blood. You have something more powerful, proof of who really stood by you. Keep the receipts, literally. I've left everything documented. Love, Grandpa. The next few weeks were a blur of legal filings and emotional exhaustion. My parents' lawyer argued that I was financially advantaged because of my upbringing and that their client, my father, was technically the rightful heir as Robert's son. The irony was unbearable. My father hadn't spoken to his own father in 30 years. He didn't even attend the funeral. He just wanted the money. When the trial began, the courtroom was packed. Neighbors, friends, even old co-workers of my grandfather showed up. Everyone knew what kind of man he was and what kind of people my parents were. My lawyer began by submitting decades of records. Every birthday card my grandparents bought me, every school tuition payment, every medical bill. My grandfather had kept them all under a folder labeled Mackenzie's Life. The judge flipped through them slowly, visibly taken aback. Then came the letter. I had the original copy authenticated and entered it into evidence. As my lawyer read it aloud, the room fell silent. The judge looked directly at my parents when he heard the line, "She's ours now." My mother looked down. My father just stared blankly ahead. Their lawyer tried to argue that emotional care didn't equal legal ownership. He said, "My clients made a mistake in their youth, but they remain the biological parents and therefore the rightful heirs." I could feel my chest tighten, but I stayed composed. When it was my turn to take the stand, I spoke calmly. I told the court that I wasn't fighting for money. I was fighting for my grandfather's wishes, for the truth of who raised me and who loved me when no one else would. Then I said, "Family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up and stay." I saw a few people in the audience wipe their eyes. My mother started crying quietly, but my father didn't react. The turning point came when my lawyer introduced a witness, my grandfather's former business partner. He testified that Robert had formally transferred ownership of all assets to a trust in my name years ago. The trust was airtight. The money, properties, and accounts were legally mine, and my parents were not listed anywhere in the documentation. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Their lawyer asked for a recess, clearly rattled. After the break, my lawyer presented the final blow, a record of every wire transfer my grandparents had made over 30 years for my education, health care, and living expenses. Each document was signed by my grandfather, with notes like "For Mackenzie's college fund," and "Our girl deserves the best." My lawyer turned to the judge and said, "These are the 32 years of receipts that prove who truly raised her." When the closing arguments ended, the judge took a long pause before delivering the verdict. He said, "In this court's opinion, the spirit of family extends beyond biology. The evidence shows a lifetime of parental care, responsibility, and financial provision by Mr. Robert Hayes. Therefore, the estate rightfully belongs to Ms. Mackenzie Hayes. The plaintiff's claim is denied." My parents looked stunned. My father's lawyer whispered something to him, but he just stared at me, expressionless. My mother sobbed quietly, saying, "We just wanted what was ours." I stood up and replied, "You had that chance 32 years ago." When I walked out of that courtroom, it felt like the weight of my entire childhood lifted. I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. The money didn't matter. It was never about that. It was about proving that love and loyalty mean more than DNA. My grandfather's legacy wasn't the $3.4 million. It was the life he built for me, the person he helped me become. That lesson has carried me through every hard moment. I learned that love is not a word. It's a record of choices. And when people show you who they are, you believe them. My parents showed me who they were when they walked away, and my grandparents showed me what real love looks like when they stayed. Today, the house my grandfather built is still standing. His old desk is in my office now, with that same letter framed beside it. Every time I look at it, I'm reminded of what he said, "Keep the receipts." Because in the end, love leaves evidence. So when people ask me how it feels to have won $3.4 million, I tell them this. I didn't win anything. I just kept what was already mine. The truth, the legacy, and the proof that family is about who shows up, not who shares your blood.